Good morning. I'm John Henderson. Today I'm going to provide a bit of a background information for maple grading and judging workshops. I hope you find this information interesting and informative. I guess you're wondering who I am. I grew up making maple syrup, so I have a lifelong interest in the maple syrup production and quality. I spent 25 years with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs in their food inspection branch, in which I spent a lot of time with the maple industry, both within the province of Ontario and internationally. Since retiring, I guess it's been 9 years now, which has gone by really fast. I've been doing some judging in local contests and fairs in Ontario. And I've also been judging the Royal Winter Fair with Dave Chapesky. So, you know, we're looking at the quality of maple syrup that's produced within the province, as well as outside. So what we're going to do today is initially go through some of the information on disqualified maple products. So I've got one slide that's going to show quite a few different contests that we've looked at and I've judged. And it highlights the fact that material quality of product that we're seeing at some of these competitions could indicate that there's something that we need to be continually working on as far as the quality and standards in maple syrup that you guys are working really hard to make. So this slide's fairly busy, but what it indicates are the syrup contest statistics. And we've gone, some of them are from 2013 to 2015. I haven't totaled everything. I left some of the smaller fairs and things we've got in there because it shows the variability in production of maple syrup that are entered into contests. In other words, you're not really sure what you're going to get as far as, is there going to be more products in the wrong color class? Or are you going to have some under density over? Are you going to get some off flavors? So what this slide really shows are the overall fact that we need to still work on quality standards within maple syrup. We need to work on, do we have the correct color class labeled on the product? Because we see that in competition, there are quite a few products that aren't in the right class. And I think it's really pointed out when we look at some of the numbers that come out of such things as the Royal Winter Fair last year. And you can see we had 17 samples that were incorrectly classified. So that means we need to work at what are we using to classify the products and how do we keep an eye on that. The other one's over density. We should be having our density we should be able to hit the range of 66 to 68.9 bricks. Obviously we have over density, we have under density, and the under density one is a bigger concern, I guess, because you could have fermentation and other issues with the product. So our question is, are these things we're seeing in the marketplace as well? If you're entering a contest and your density isn't correct, are you packing and selling product that also is under density? And again, it's costing you customers, it's affecting the whole maple syrup industry. And then I guess our biggest one is off flavors. Last year at the Royal, we had 8 off flavored products. And why would you enter in a major competition when your syrup wasn't tasting the best you could possibly make? And what we are thinking that people aren't aware of or aren't tasting their product when they put it away for a fair, and it's showing that when it's opened and tasted by the judges. So again, it shows that we still have a fairly high number disqualified. Again, there are factors that are beyond the producer's control, but it means that when you're entering competitions, you really should have the best product you make in there. Otherwise, you've gone to a lot of work and effort, and the product isn't up to, what you could make. So another area I'm going to talk about briefly is the flavor wheel development. Now, if you're not aware of the flavor wheel, you can go on to the Center Acer website, or you can Google actually flavor wheel, and it'll show up. And what it was an attempt to briefly define tastes and flavors you could find in maple products. And what happened, it was a team developed by a research team by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and Center Acer. They grouped the flavors they found in maple syrup, and they were trying to provide a common language that one could reference. And it's really handy when you're looking at trying to distinguish some of the off flavors you might find in syrup, and you do have some categories to judge. Now, the terminology used in the flavor wheel were from 250 different reference characters provided by several taste panels. Now, some of these people on the panels were specialists in the tasting products. So they came up with a lot of different names, a lot of things you would not think you would ever find in maple products, but they did find those as some of the flavors. So they end up refining that to 11 flavor groupings and 2 foreign categories. Now, again, as I mentioned, this assists in categorizing off flavors and provides a useful material to be used to develop the maple color class and taste descriptors that we ended up having in our final international maple standards that you're aware of today. So the flavor wheel is quite useful for that. And as I mentioned, information is available on the Canadian Food and, well, I guess Agriculture Canada website. So the next thing we're going to look at are the background for the color class and taste descriptor development. Now, most of you might probably are aware that the International Maple Syrup Institute established a committee back in 2002 to develop a new international standard, grade standard, both color classification and trying to, I guess, have a unified system for North America. Because at that time, Canada had different system than the US, than Vermont. Let's say we just had different taste descriptors, definitions, a little bit of different labeling requirements. So it was creating a bit of confusion within the industry. So in 2005, a report was tabled with some revisions and recommendations, trying to standardize and simplify the application of the standards. And the other thing that we're looking at is reflecting consumers' needs and preferences. In the past, the grading system was probably fairly well understood by the individual producers in the particular district, whether it was a state or a province, but not really understood by the consumers. For example, in Canada, we used to have light syrup, like, you know, extra light and light, which related to color class. However, some consumers wonder if that related to, was it a dietary product? Was it light? And the other thing is, syrup would be labeled Canada #2 just because of the color. So why would you buy a #2 product? So right away, there were some issues with the labeling. So what we did is went through a lot of research and background information. And as you're aware, a final draft was approved in 2009 by the International Maple Syrup Institute. And that was used to prepare and actually end up with the system we have now. So maple grades review and sensory evaluation research. Well, the Center Acer completed a preliminary study, and we're looking into see if there's a link between % light transmission and flavor or taste or intensity of flavor. So what they did, they had 92 syrup samples with identified flavors, and they did complete a statistical analysis of the results. And what they found that that the color classes, like they did, well, I guess I'll go back one step. I missed this a little bit. So some of the statistical analysis, they did an ANOVA analysis, and they did some scatter plot grafting, and they were looking to see if there were significant differences in the color classes related to flavors in the syrup. In other words, as the syrup darkened in color, could you have a particular different flavor or a stronger taste or intensity of flavor in that syrup? So a summary of their findings is that they felt that the research backed the fact that the % transmittance can differentiate 3 families out of the 11 described in the flavor wheel. So the most marked differentiation was the confectionery, which is a sugar taste, and the informatic, which is actually the burnt sugar taste. And so the milky, which actually, you know, is a butter or milky taste in the syrup. So that wasn't really very strong, but they did find the confectionery and the informatic were the ones that were more significant, and they actually were differentiated. So they developed an intensity of flavor or taste. And so that's what it is. As the flavor intensifies, you get a mix of flavors, so you get a taste in the syrup. So the ranges were 1 to 5 of the taste test. And the informatic was the strongest flavor. It was 2.5 to 3.3. Maple is 2.2 to 2.5. Confectionery 1.5 to 2. And the milky was very low, so it wasn't very intense. So what did that mean? So while the milky flavor and the remaining families, as on the flavor wheel, were very, very low intensity and couldn't really be picked up by any consumers and were considered as side notes, not discriminating flavors. In other words, as the color classes changed, you couldn't really pick up some of these other flavors. And they also felt that the maple flavor was not correlated with color or intensity of confectionery or aromatic flavors, where lighter, darker syrups may contain the maple flavor, but it wouldn't be as pronounced as in the lighter class of syrup. So the center Acer hypothesis was that confectionery, aromatic, and maple are determined by biological processes, and that that the heating process during syrup production is responsible for developing the confectionery and aromatic flavors, and the maple flavor may be independent from heating. So this information is available from Center Acer. Natalie Martin prepared and presented the background of that research project. But what this points out is that in all of syrup, you could have the maple flavor, but as the syrup darkened, you had stronger aromatic and confectionery tastes. So that meant that a 4-color class system did cover off various syrup, the various different tastes in maple syrup. So they decided that we needed to go to some consumer research on standardized grading system. So that report was presented in 2008. Now what happened there was actually 299 participants and 6 focus groups. They were in New Jersey, Ontario, and Quebec in 3 different locations. People did a blind taste test, questionnaire, and then discussions. Now the syrup was all selected. There were, I think, 50 samples, and each group tasted up to 9 pairs. And then a questionnaire and discussion followed. So what they found is individual flavors such as maple, vanilla, and confectionery cannot consistently be detected by the consumers. So that's why you couldn't really label a syrup with a particular flavor. In other words, because you wouldn't always have that flavor in the syrup. They also found that consumers relate the intensity of flavor or the taste differences in the syrup. So they can pick up that, and they look at the color and taste as being important to them. And usually its intensity of flavor increases as the syrup darkens. And that's what consumers will be looking for when they're purchasing product. If they like a darker or a stronger tasting product, they'll go to a darker color class. And so one of the other factors in the questionnaire and discussions, the taste test panels provided several taste descriptors. In other words, when they tasted one sample of syrup, they would provide a word that they felt described that. And that provided a list of taste descriptors that again were refined through discussion with all the stakeholders in the industry, and came up with the actual 4 taste descriptors that we have now on our maple syrup. So that's the end of this. Now that's everything. I think it's time to go and look at some of these and discuss some of the syrup flavors that you'll be using in the workshop. And if there are any questions, then there will be people available or online to answer those questions for you. So good luck, and I hope you have a good maple season in 2020. Thank you.